Welcome to another edition of the Tom Green Podcast. I'd first like to start out that this is actually my first podcast since the end of the semester at SVSU, and I'm glad to say to you guys that I've made it. I've graduated. I've yet to get my bachelor's degree, but I will be getting that soon. And I'd like to thank the RPW wing and the communications wing, Dr. Amy Pierce, Dr. Jennifer McCullough, Dr. Dave Schneider, Dr. Brittany Collins, Dr. Bill Williamson, Dr. Scott Kowalewski, Dr. Fenobia Dallas, Dr. Brad Herzog, Dr. Beth Jorgensen, and if I missed any, I didn't mean to. Thank you all for giving me a great education, for guiding me to this point where I am right now, walking and with a degree in my hands shortly. So, great accomplishment for yours truly. For this episode, we're going to talk some New Year's Six, and I brought in a student that's met some people that I have, and I'm going to introduce him this way.
Black is black. I want my baby back. It's gray, it's gray. CG with the way, what can I do?
That's right, Los Bravos said it right. It's gray, it's gray. Gray Robertson. Welcome to the show, Gray.
Hey Tom, how you doing? Thanks for bringing me on over this holiday season.
Of course, over this bowl season, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But
this
yes,
time of the year.
3 Point Stance Magazine, our buddies Jeff Lyons, Brandon Rush call it Football Festivus. So however you call it, it's a great time of year. So with that being said, I'd first said at the show that he's a couple people that I have, and I'll tell them. Tim Brando, Laura Rutledge, great people. In fact, I try to get them on the show, but they'll be impressed that I can always pull a plan B. Tell us a little bit about your experiences there with Tim and Laura.
Well, Laura I've only run into once. She is usually she's everywhere.
Oh, yes.
Easily one of the hardest working ladies in college football media, and she's fantastic at her job.
Yes.
Timothy's been a great friend for years. I met him. He's good friends with my dad. We met years ago when he knew I was interested in this field. He became a mentor of sorts. He's come on my show probably, an exorbitant amount of times. He's been excellent over the years, and he's such a great interview and so honest about whatever he's talking about, whether it be sports related or advice related. And he's great. And there are two that I've run into, and I've had many other people that have helped me along the way, but certainly Timmy D's been a big part of me getting some of the success that I've had already so far in my life.
Yes, definitely. And about Laura and Tim there, Laura's mentor was Dick Enberg, and funny coincidence, I never actually met Enberg, but I'm actually live in Dick Enberg territory, if you want to call it that. He went to CMU, Central Michigan. He was into sports like we are, and he started as a janitor, believe it or not, inside the radio business, Shepherd Public Radio, CMU Public Radio, and he worked up like that.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Enberg, and when he passed away, it was a real punch to the gut because I hated that I had a chance to meet him. And actually, I was doing our family spring cleaning here, which we always do in the winter time for whatever reason, because it's the only time we're all at home early this part before Christmas. And I found this story that I wrote back in 7th grade, and I had featured Dick Enberg as a character, and that was it again brought up some of the nostalgia that I've had of some of his great calls, and again the desire that I wish I'd had a chance to meet him, but he was such a legend, and we definitely miss him in the sports media world.
And one of the stories I've heard was Baders, they met Dick Enberg, and he said, "Hi, it's good to meet you, Mr. Enberg." His first 3 words, "Call me Dick." Very down to earth. Very down to earth. And as far as Laura, like I had said it before on this show many times, she's everywhere. I'm sure you've seen these bottom 10.
Yes.
One of them, and I died laughing out loud, Laura Rutledge's clones. Are we sure that's the actual Laura Rutledge, or is that her clone?
Well, we had Lauren Sisler from SEC Nation on our show a couple weeks ago, and I asked her because it was right at the end of the year. And I asked her, Lauren, what is the moment of the year for you on the show? What was the moment that made for, something that you'll always remember? And she said, Laura Rutledge being the MVP of the show. And she highlighted, of course, her getting run over on the Georgia line, her getting dragged by Uga, an intro they did where Laura came in being a horse and then had to get off the horse and get to the stage in about 10 seconds. And she was raving about all the, also now, I mean, she's everywhere, and she does such a great job with all of the sports that she covers, because it's not just football. She does softball, she does a little bit of everything for ESPN, and she's fantastic.
And my opinion is, Laura saved Get Up. Honestly, that show was ratings, and yes, I'm a Clay Travis follower, and yes, politically I'm a little right slanted, and I'm not going to go that far in terms of that, but so ratings wise was going down the drain. And when Laura was hired onto that show regularly,
well, I think Laura is so successful, and she's just so likable, and she's so nice. Yes. And she seems like somebody you would be friends with. And, I mean, to me, at least the media folks that I've encountered and worked with and interviewed, and the ones that are my favorites are the ones that you can, be with at the game, and then afterwards have a drink with at the bar. And I've never done that with Laura, but there are many others where, if you're like that and you don't have a big head, then, people are going to like you, and the ratings usually reflect that. The number of fans that you have and the amount of social media that you generate usually reflects that as well.
Yes, definitely. And you had a little testimony I put there before I went to Michigan, Indiana. Working with students speaks a lot. I mean, working with people like us speaks a lot of character. One, the students, and two, her. And she does that. The same with Brando. I'll switch gears over here to Brando a bit. I met him at Michigan, Minnesota. Should have to add to that networking thread, but he retweeted it so people saw it. He's real down to earth. I was very close to getting him, but of course, just like the rest of them, schedules happen. Busy things happen.
Yeah, Brando, like I said, has been a friend for years, and he's such a great guy. He never says no to asking about advice. He never flat out says no to come to the show. Like you said, it's usually just scheduling things. We had him on a couple times earlier this year, and he will talk more than anyone else that we will show, but everything he says is genuine, and it's what he honestly believes, and it's very opinionated, and he stands by it. And that's what makes him so interesting in sports, because there aren't a lot of guys that are just going to stay away, and Brando does what anyone else says.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, and I say it on here, but I will, his age. He's very experienced, and I think that he has, and his age too, he thinks, you know what? If I get fired, so what? I've lived a great life. I've had a great time in sports. So what?
Well, he's been around the block. I'm going to borrow a phrase that he said when he was here a couple years ago in Birmingham for a function, and he was over here, and we were talking to him for a little bit. And he works in the toy department of life, which is sports media. And I think that there's nothing more true than that statement. There's fields, in my opinion, that is more fun to cover. It's more fun to go to work when you're working in sports. And I think he hits the nail on the head with that phrase. It really is something special to work in a field that's so fun.
Yes, definitely. And in fact, I've joked that I call him my and in fact, I call Laura my work sister. The same with Jenny Taft. I'll call them my work sisters. So, and in fact, I'd even tweeted Laura last. I like the alternative that I got for this show, which was you. So I think they'll both really like that snippet that we got there. Longer than I thought. So, to get this playoff preview, New Year's 6, I know you had tweeted about this a couple nights ago, and I know the narrative is getting overplayed, but I gotta ask it anyway. 18 playoff, your thoughts?
I think everything needs to calm down. Okay. I get it. I get it. In today's society, everybody wants everybody to have a fair shot, yada, yada, yada. But I'm so against rushing to move things when we don't have to. First off, I never thought I get why we BCS to a playoff. I never thought that messed up. I never thought that there was a year where they did not have the best team winning the national championship or the two best teams competing. The only year maybe that you could argue with was 2004 with USC, Oklahoma, and Auburn would have had a chance, but I see why Oklahoma got in there. I never thought they messed it up, but I also saw the merit to moving to 4, so I was okay with that. I don't think the committee has made any mistakes with the 4 teams that they've put in. The 2 quote-unquote gambles have paid off with national championships. Ohio State in year 1, Alabama last year is the 2 teams that kind of slid in. So I don't know why we're trying to rush to this. We had nearly 20 years of the BCS, and then we decided to switch. So why is everyone wanting to move from what we have now after just 5 and potentially 6 years? I don't understand the rush. I don't know why we want to open it to more teams who didn't earn it. I'm a very staunch advocate for don't lose twice, and if you lose twice, you don't deserve to be in for the playoff. I think Georgia this year is one of the 4 best teams in the country. Lost twice, they don't belong in the playoff. We can't ignore the LSU game that happened in October. So I just don't understand. I don't think that the broken as people think it is, and I have issues with rewarding teams for, I don't want to say mediocrity, but for not doing what the teams ahead of them did to get into the playoffs, if that's sense. One-loss teams, they deserve to be in the conversation. Anybody beyond that, I have a problem with that because that, to me, cancels out certain parts of the regular.
Boy, I sure wish you weren't in, or I sure hope you're not in Baton Rouge, Louisiana back in 2007. Because that was the last time a 2-loss team won a national title. So,
but that was an unusual year. I mean, there were more 2-loss teams than ever before and ever again. And again, we have to remember CF, which we'll talk about later.
Yes.
Certain things are not the norm; they're the exception. So
like the Chris Farley, I'm not the norm.
So what?
I said, like Chris Farley, it's not the norm.
You have to remember that when a UCF team wins 25 games in a row here, so we don't have to change the system to accommodate that and then never have that happen again, because there's a chance it might not. LSU being a 2-loss champion out of the SEC, I don't know if that's ever going to happen again with the SEC recruiting the way it is going forward. So it's important to remember that we don't have to change systems to accommodate the extreme circumstances. They're not the norm, and it's important that we keep that in perspective.
Definitely. Now, my thing is I would like to see it expand, but adding to your argument there, look at basketball. 58 teams. What do teams 69 and 70 say? And yes, that how was meant to be there. I'm sure you know about that. But besides the point, 69 and 70, what are they thinking? Oh my God, we should have been in it. Look at football. Teams 5 and 6. Oh my God, we should have been in it. The argument doesn't end.
Well, if we're trying to make teams happy, good luck. That'll never happen. I mean, It's impossible to make everybody happy. And you're right. I mean, 5 and 6 have an argument. This year we expand to 6. Well, what about 6 and 7? Take this year we expand to 6. Well, so UCF's still out. I mean, what do we do about that? Expand to 8. Well, what about 9 and 10? They've done something. I mean, you can't please everybody. So I say, why reward more teams that didn't as the team rewarding now? I just don't know why we're trying to rush to that. I think if we want to expand things, let the 12 track run out. Let full sample size that the CFP and Bill Hancock and the rest of that committee of presidents and athletic directors and commissioners that they set out to talk about it. We don't need to rush. I don't understand why people are so antsy about it.
Okay. Yeah, and if I wanted to see an expansion, I'd want to see it just to 8, and it would be the Power Group of 5 champion and 2 at-larges, which would be what everybody's talking about, the champions plus UCF, Notre Dame, and Georgia would be for this year.
With that scenario, I think that you could make a spot for the Power 5 champions, but I'm not sure the Group of 5 champion would, in my mind, deserve an automatic bid. And I say that, again, because of my comments about UCF not being the norm. Undefeated teams come through, and if they're as good as they appear with that undefeated record, they would get an at-large bid. UCF this year would get an at-large bid as the 8th team in the country, I believe. But then again, if there's an 11-1 team, or maybe a 10-2, 11-2 champion out of the AAC, whose losses are to SMU at home and at Memphis, why are we rewarding them with an automatic bid to the playoff when maybe there's an 11-1 SEC team or an 11-1 Big Ten team more deserving? So I'm not necessarily in on the Group of 5 automatic bid, but I could see the merit with doing Power 5 automatic bids. Although, again, you would have to figure out a way to get the most deserving teams in there and maybe rework divisions. I don't know, but figure out a way to where an 8-5 ACC champion Pittsburgh, like what could have happened this year, small chance, but it could have happened, where they don't have a chance to play for a national championship, because I don't think a team that goes 8-5 deserves to have a chance to call themselves the best team in college football that year.
Yeah, you see these. I guess we'll call them random division winners close up against teams that we know that are going to win, like a Clemson or an Ohio State even. And yeah, that's a very, very good point. So, with that being said, let's go to the New Year's Six preview, shall we? We're gonna start New Year's Day and move towards the actual games. We'll start with the Fiesta Bowl, UCF and LSU, and of course, first talking point, expanding on the 18 playoff. UCF 25-game win streak. Do they deserve a chance?
No, I don't think so, and I didn't think so. I think maybe they should have been ranked ahead of Michigan, but I don't know. I couldn't rationalize that with the injury to Mackenzie Milton, and I know that you quote-unquote can't punish teams for stuff that happens, but when the committee sits down and looks at these teams, they have to take into account where they are at that moment. And UCF, even though they won the American with Mack at quarterback, they're not as good a team without Mackenzie Milton. They're just not. I can't figure out how they would be without the guy who led them to 23 of those 25 wins and started in the 24th. I just don't see that happening, and I think we'll see that against LSU, that Mack is a cry from what Mackenzie Milton is, because Memphis's defense, I've been studying for the Birmingham Bowl on Saturday, and Memphis's defense is nowhere near what LSU is, obviously. So no, I don't think that. I think maybe if Milton had stayed healthy, maybe they would have had a chance to be in the conversation. They're obviously a very good team, but I can't put them ahead of other teams when their best players hurt. And maybe that's not fair. I don't really care. Life isn't fair. College football certainly isn't fair, because some things happen that are bad breaks for some teams, and that's just how life works. But no, I don't think UCF belonged in the playoff.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen them get a chance, because 25 straight is remarkable. Name another team in the FBS that's done it. You can't. But of course, losing your best player, they might not be the same team that was with Mack instead of Milton. Do they ride out the momentum they have? LSU. Now, I did put on the talking point, are they motivated? And I say that because here they are, 3 losses coming off of a 7 overtime game against Texas A&M that ended in the wee hours of the morning. Maybe they're still playing now. I could still hear LSU's band in my head from watching the end of that game. But what is the motivation here for LSU?
Well, first off, there's no way in heck Ed Orgeron is not getting his players fired up. No way. There is not a competitive, or I guess non-competitive bone in Ed Orgeron's body. He's going to get them fired up. Second off, if you're LSU, I think that the UCF, I guess I'll call it a phenomenon, whatever. I would say circus, if I had to put a word to it. But the UCF circus, they hear it too. They hear the fake national championship claims, and they see the banners. And LSU, is carrying the torch for the SEC, which I think has been really the main target of all of these comments. UCF beat Auburn. UCF claimed a national championship when Alabama won it. So LSU's carrying the banner for the conference, and I think that'll be a motivating factor as well. Devin White playing is important. Mm-hmm. That'll help that defense. That'll keep them tuned in. And I think, again, finally, going back to the A&M game, LSU feels like they were cheated out of that game. There were some calls. I've read what Steve Shaw, the SEC director of officiating, said in regards. He said the only call that was questionable was the pass interference in, I think, the 7th overtime. I don't know. They all went together.
Right.
But I think that they feel like they don't want the season to end that way. A lot of their fans are angry about that game. The defense is certainly probably very angry that they gave up as many points as they did. And I would just be very surprised if LSU came out flat in this game. The only thing maybe is if they walk in with an attitude like Auburn probably had last year, thinking that they can walk in and roll over UCF, because that's not the case. Like I said earlier, UCF is a good football team. They're going to put up points, but they're not as big or as physical as LSU. LSU's got to come in fired up, ready to play, respecting the opponent, but also knowing that if they just execute, they're going to win this game.
Yeah, and losing Milton was huge. In fact, the knee injury, I felt like I was watching the episode of, watching the episode of Family Guy when Peter and Quagmire and Cleveland were playing Jackass. When Peter's spine goes all the way up, I'm sure you can see that. I had that same reaction looking at Milton's leg. Oh! And with LSU, like you had said, they're mad. And anger provokes motivation. And of course, Eddie Orgeron, being the guy that he is, you could tell by my Eddie Orgeron impersonation that he's going to get those guys fired up. Hold that tiger, go Tigers! And
I think you're enunciating a bit too much with your impersonation. I can tell what you're saying a bit too much.
I try.
We need some captions for some of the things that he says. As much as I love Coach O, it's almost like watching an episode of Honey Boo Boo where they have closed captioning pop up. And it's just who he is, and it's why we love him. He's so great, but he's an excellent motivator. His players won't know what the heck he's talking about, but they'll get fired up because that's just who he is.
And boy, has Joe Burrow helped that team this year. I mean, going into the season, things look doubtful for LSU. Oh, they got this. They got a transfer. Let's see what happens against Miami. Boom! They beat Miami good, and here they are, at least in the SEC conversation, as they should be.
Well, the thing about Joe Burrow is he's not great. He's not a game changer, but he's not gonna mess things up. He's going to do well enough. His best game of the year was against Georgia, and he played really well. But, I mean, look at the passing yards, 2,500. Okay, that's average. 12 touchdowns. Okay, that's average. 4 picks, that's the number you center in on. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He doesn't put your team in precarious situations. He's not going to win you the game, which will be a problem for LSU if UCF puts up a lot of points in the Fiesta Bowl, but he's not going to lose it for you either, and that's a valuable asset to have as a quarterback.
Right. LSU's offense reminds me a lot of like Bears offenses of the 80s. A lot of run-oriented, not a lot of quarter play necessary.
They're perfectly happy giving it to Nick Brissett 15 times and the rest of the stable of running backs a couple more times and seeing where that gets them. They're not going to put the game in Joe Burrow's hands unless it gets dicey, and we'll see how it goes. He played really well against Auburn. I was at that game, and so the only time all year where I thought, this guy could be a game changer. He's not that guy, but he can be if they need him to be. I'm just worried that if they call upon him, I can't guarantee that he would step up, if that makes sense. There are quarterbacks that I know would step up. Tua, Kyler Murray, I think Jake Fromm is in that conversation. Joe Burrow is not that guy, and I don't know for sure that he would be able to bring LSU back if UCF got off to a good start.
Right, Jake from State Farm, you mean?
Yes, exactly.
What are you wearing, Jake from State Farm? Khakis. So, with that being said, how do we think this Fiesta Bowl will go?
I said LSU 31-23. I think it'll be an even game early, but I think, again, like I said, they just execute, they're going to win. They're more physical, they're faster, and they're just a better football team overall from a talent standpoint. UCF is going to have to scheme the heck out of this if they want to win. They're going to have to come up with some razzle-dazzle. Mac's going to have to play superb. He's not going to be able to make any mistakes in this game. And I think that all of those things happening for UCF is unlikely, in my opinion. So I've got LSU by 8. And I think it'll be really entertaining, though. Maybe one of the closer New Year's 6 games that we'll see.
Yeah, going into the show, I was thinking to myself, UCF is just hot. I kind of don't see how they lose this. But with no Milton, this is quarterback's second championship, Mac's second bowl game, and the nerves have got to be high. And LSU, they're going in having bowl experience, of course. I'm not saying UCF doesn't. I'm saying LSU has had the experience of being in the big stage before, and I could see LSU winning this one as well. Milton being the factor. If you give the ball to Nick Brosette, things will be fine as long as UCF's defense doesn't stop them. Give me LSU 34, UCF 20. UCF being exposed to a good defense, and things will happen LSU's way.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, that's the other thing. UCF hasn't seen a defense like LSU's. They haven't seen a linebacker like Devin White, and I would be really shocked if they win this game. It's going to be a tight game, but it'll be one of those games where, it'll be 14-6 LSU second quarter, and it'll be a close score, but it will be blatantly obvious that LSU is in control of the game. Score-wise, I think it'll be competitive. I'm just not sure UCF has an actual chance to win this game, to be quite honest.
And like we said, no Milton, most likely a problem. Moving on to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, we got Ohio State and Washington. Now, of course, Ohio State, we don't have to go too far about that because they beat the brakes off my Michigan men, which, of course, saddened me for a while. But Urban Meyer is retiring, which honestly surprised me. I thought he would go one more year. But we have Urban Meyer's last game against Jake Browning's last game in Pasadena. Who's going to get the last laugh? We're probably thinking the same thing, but go ahead and tell me who do you think is going to get the last laugh?
First off, I don't see a scenario where Ohio State loses this game. And I was not surprised that he retired, to be honest. I felt like the writing was on the wall at the beginning of the year.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just the vibe that you got. He looked tired from the beginning of the year. He looked like he was bothered with all the stuff that was happening, which was not a good look for him. And then you combine him announcing the cyst and him collapsing on the sidelines multiple times. So I wasn't surprised. I felt like the audition of Ryan Day also would have made it easier for them to transition after this year since he coached this season. But again, it's Urban Meyer's last go-round, and it sounds like it will be his final game coaching in college football, barring something maybe medically that changes in the future. And I don't see a scenario where they lose this game, and it's because of Dwayne Haskins. I mean, the guy's insane. 4,500 passing yards, 47 touchdowns. Actually, I called one of his games in high school, my high school up in Virginia, traveled over to Bullis in Maryland. We won the game 66-65 in overtime, but Haskins was the best player on the field, and it wasn't close. In that game, 440 passing yards, 7 touchdowns through the air, and a rushing touchdown. So watching that game, I knew, and I think at the time he was committed to Maryland, I knew that he was going to be something special. And it's been obvious all year just how good he is and how good this offense is, and they've got 2 great running backs. And Jake Browning isn't as good as he was last year or 2 years ago. And I think Washington is just a bit outmatched here. As good a coach as Chris Peterson is, everything is going against him, and it's hard not to pick in support of the tidal wave going Ohio State's way.
Yeah, I really think this is either going to be a close Washington win or Ohio State is going to knock the doors off of them, and we both think, yes, Ohio State is going to run away with this and run away convincingly. Just for kicks, give me a score.
I said 41-21, and that's not an indictment on Washington's defense. They're a very good defense. It's more, wow, this Ohio State offense is that good, and they're going to be that motivated. I just don't see a scenario where it's close, and I don't see a scenario where Ohio State scores less than 35. So give me Ohio State by 20.
Yeah, it seems like Washington is good, but when it comes to the big game scenario, and you've seen it as an SEC guy against Alabama, they choke.
Yeah, it's hard because these Pac-12 teams are not built the way that SEC teams, the way that Big Ten's teams are, the way that even ACC teams are, even though they don't play many of those. They're not built that way. So when these Pac-12 teams meet these other Power 5 teams in bowl games, it rarely goes well unless you're Kyle Whittingham in Utah and you're incapable of losing a bowl game. So it's hard for Washington, in my mind, to match up with Ohio State, just like we've seen in the past against Alabama, against a not very good Auburn team to begin the year as well.
Yeah. Give me Ohio State. I'm going to say 45-17. Even worse than what you've got. Going to the Sugar Bowl, which will both be up until at least midnight Central Time, probably 1 a.m. because this game goes on forever. Sugar Bowl always does. Texas, Georgia. My talking boy here. Texas. Are they really back?
It's a loaded question.
Not really. It's only 4 words.
Are they back in the Big 12 conversation going forward? Yes. Are they back in the national championship conversation going forward? No, I don't think so. Not immediately, anyway, although Sam Ehlinger's been really good this year. 38 total touchdowns, only the 5 picks. I mean, he's been efficient. He hasn't made a lot of mistakes. Their defense has been inconsistent, but marginally pretty good overall. I'm not sure I'm ready to say that they are back as a national title contender. I think they were around the top 10 in recruiting yesterday. I haven't checked the list today. But I think it's going to take a couple of years, but this is the right path for Texas, right? I mean, they're on the correct trajectory to get back. And you're not going to go from a nobody in the Big 12 to a national championship contender overnight. You have to first compete in your conference. And they did that this year. They made the title game, and I think next year they'll do a little bit better, at least record-wise. So back in the national title conversation, no. Make that 2 years from now. But back in the Big 12, absolutely. And we'll see next year how that plays out. But that's going to be a really interesting conference race.
Definitely. I think what would help answer this question is this game right here, because they've got the SEC runners-up who could have beaten Alabama twice and probably should have, and they've got them. The problem with Texas over the years since 2005, or really since 2009, quarterback play. When they had consistent quarterback play with Vince Young, Colt McCoy, they were going to and winning national titles. Now with inconsistent play with the other handful of quarterbacks they've had to now Ehlinger is now getting consistent, so now you can see them in the Big 10 or the Big 12 title race. As for national, like I said, really depends on this game. Moving to Georgia, they should have beaten Alabama, and we all know it. Where's their mojo?
They are. So again, going back to what we talked about earlier, I think watching Georgia, I was at 5 of their games in the regular season, and I was at the SEC championship. And watching them, it was clear. Now, I will say I was not at the LSU game. That was a game that I missed to stay in Tuscaloosa for something up there. But the games that I saw and watching the SEC championship, it was clear to me from a consistency standpoint, from a talent standpoint, they are one of the 4 best teams, easily. And I think that they realized they let an opportunity slip away against Alabama with that inexplicable fake punt call, which, by the way, you said you're a Clay Travis fan. Clay Travis tweeted this out, and I think I thought about it talking with my father a few hours earlier. Wild that Justin Fields' final play at Georgia is that fake punt. Absolutely wild. But to me, they're one of the 4 best teams, and I think they recognize that, and I think they're going to be angry that they let an opportunity slip away, that they weren't put in the playoff, even though I didn't think they should be. They certainly had an argument, and I think that they're going to use Swift and Holyfield and all those backs, and they're going to find a way to win this game, and they're going to be motivated. They're going to be angry. They're going to want to prove to the committee that they deserve to be in the playoffs. And I'll also add this. I've seen Jake Fromm a lot this year. I watched him in the SEC Championship against Auburn last year. Jake Fromm is easily, in my mind, the most underappreciated quarterback in the country. He can make certain throws that a lot of guys can't make. I've seen no quarterback that is better at the 10-yard out to the wide side of the field than Jake Fromm. He is the best quarterback at throwing that route, at throwing certain routes. He's consistent, and he's a star, and he is why I think, just bold prediction here, I think Georgia's going to win the national championship next year. But he's a big reason why they were in a position to make the playoff this year, and why I think they'll win pretty big in this Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, and if Nada and Ridley return, that would really help Fromm. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. But even then, I mean, the recruiting classes have been so good. They've got so many weapons. It's it's hard not to look at Georgia and see what Peter Burns has said all year, that this is the worst Georgia team we're going to see in the next 5 years. And this is not a bad Georgia team. The future is certainly bright, and this is another way to kind of end the year trending up going into next season.
Yeah, and the thing was with that, I mean, when you have Holyfield, Evander Holyfield is his dad. Why wasn't Evander on that field punching a guy, knocking a guy from Alabama out so they could get the first down on the fake punt?
Well, I'm not an expert. That might have been a flag.
Right.
But, you know, it would have been certainly a different conversation for Georgia than what happened with him not out there and then running the horrible fake punt that wasn't even close to getting the first down.
Now, the thing was, when I was watching that play, I'm like, fake it. Please, fake it. I saw it, and I'm like, yeah. Oh, that was the worst call imaginable on that. Oh.
Well, here's the thing about it, and I said this to the folks around me because we were all sitting there and we all looked at each other like, what in the world? Why? And you got to disguise it better. And I get it. They said that they'd seen it in film, that there would have been an open receiver over the right, and Alabama covered it. At that point, you call timeout, Kirby. It's easy. It's coaching 101. Yes. But if you're going to run a fake punt, you got to disguise it better than having Justin Fields be the mid guy in front of the punter and behind the line. Because if you watch Georgia punting, every other guy, every other punt is a 350-pound lineman. So all of a sudden, you've got some skinny guy wearing number 1 back there. The antenna's going to go up. You have to snap it quicker, or else it's going to be clued in pretty easily. And even if you snap in quickly, people are going to realize what's happening pretty fast. And there was a lot wrong with it. You have to disguise it better if you want to run that play, in my opinion. Maybe have a receiver back there for the punt earlier to block. Something else to change up the tendency, because when you have that drastic a shift from what you do with your punting game, it's pretty obvious that something squirrely is going on.
Right, and just unfortunate for Georgia that now twice you had Alabama beat, and you blew it.
Well, that's unfortunately life as a Georgia fan.
Yeah.
It's happened way too many times in their history.
Definitely. So, score prediction, how does this Sugar Bowl go?
I said Georgia 34-21 over Texas, and I think I don't think it'll be that close, at least on the field. I think Texas might get a late touchdown. I don't see how Georgia comes out unmotivated. And I don't think Texas pound for pound can play with Georgia. Georgia's one of, I would argue, the third best team in the country behind Alabama and Clemson, at least talent-wise and at least based on what I've seen from all these teams. And I think they'll prove it in New Orleans. It'll be an exciting game, and there'll be some fun plays, but Texas won't hang with them, I don't think.
Yeah, one of two ways this game ends. Georgia's either going to come out really flat or they're going to come out rolling. And I think they're going to come out rolling and say, hey, we belong in this playoff. We belong. I'm going to go 28-17, Georgia. A little lower scoring. Moving on to the December 29th Bowls. For those that have been regularly listening to the Michigan podcasts, this is the time where you'd listen to the Michigan preview. So, Michigan, Florida. Michigan has had a history of beating Florida. Thank God. At least in my opinion. So, first off, down south, you listen to Paul Feinbaum. Thank God your ears haven't bled out. But you've listened to Paul Feinbaum a lot. He's very critical of Harbaugh. What are your thoughts on the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Harbaugh?
Well, this is a complicated question as well, because Harbaugh was brought to Michigan to win national championships, right? I mean, you're a Michigan fan, that's correct. And it hasn't happened, and he hasn't won the big games. You could argue this year, all right, beat Michigan State. Well, look at what Michigan State turned out to be. It's a bad team this year, 7-5. Preseason, I had them as a playoff team, to be perfectly honest, and they let me down. They let a lot of people down. They can't even get first downs. They can't get out of their own 10-yard line.
Yeah.
It's a loaded question, because Harbaugh, what he's done in Michigan works everywhere else. You've got 9-3. You've got 10-3. You've got 8-5, 9-4 seasons. That works. That works at 90% of the schools in college football, even if you're losing to your rivals. It doesn't work at Michigan. And I was talking to Greg McElroy, who I had on my show a couple weeks ago, and I asked him about it. I said, where does Harbaugh, now that Meyer's gone from the Big Ten, where does he rank in terms of national head coaches? Where does he rank in the Big Ten? Because he's certainly the most notable. And Greg said to me he thinks Harbaugh's a great coach, but he's just not getting it done. And that sentiment I certainly agree with, because we expect Jim Harbaugh, with all the flash, all the talk, even this year with a more understated season from him, quote-wise, we expect him to get it done. And even in years where it appears that they've got the edge, like the Ohio State game this year,
I know.
They got killed. And this isn't even, in my opinion, a very good Ohio State team. They've got one good player and a couple good running backs, but they've got a lot of questions, and they blew out Michigan. And it's very alarming to me that he can't win these kinds of games. And should he be on the hot seat? Probably not. Probably not after this year. But questions have to be asked. Why is he not getting it done? What's wrong? What changes have to be made? What changes about him have to be made? Those are all questions that need to be answered. And also, kind of going to something Greg McElroy said on the show, sure, this is a very important game for Michigan. Hugely important game. Yes. You can't be as good as they were all year and then get killed by Ohio State and lose the bowl game again. It can't happen again, because then the same conversations will come up, the same negative press about Michigan will circulate around the country all offseason. It's very, very, very important that Michigan wins this game against Florida. But it's easily, and Greg McElroy said this, I agreed with him, it's easily the team, other than the 4 teams in the playoff, obviously, because they're going for national championship, it's easily the team that needs a bowl win the most in all of college football.
Yes, and my thoughts are, take the name Michigan away from this team. Look what Jim has done. 3 10-win seasons. Another 8-win season that there were quarterback problems. 3 10-win seasons. Yes, I am frustrated like everyone else that they have not beaten Ohio State. Yes, I want to win the Big Ten. Yes, I want to win the national championship. Yes, I want to get that monkey off of our backs. But you know what happened the last time we were in this situation? And this was 2006, 2007. We pretty much forced Lloyd Carr to retire, and then we hired a hot name in Rich Rodriguez, and look what that did to us. It put us through the toilet. So, before we want to sever Harbaugh's head, we can't do that. We have to let the process play out. Now, let's say they went 6-7 this year, which one of my regulars, I actually work at a Kroger's here in Essexville as a cashier. One of my regulars, Al, who's an Ohio State fan, told me, if they lose to Notre Dame, they're going to go 6-7. Well, guess what, Al? We went 10-2. Yes, we lost to you guys, and we got beat bad. But this was Harbaugh's make it or break it year. And yes, even though we're still not in the national title chase yet, in my mind, he's made it, and we should give it another season at least. Look at the recruiting class, number 9. We flipped an Alabama guy, Dax Hill. We're still on track. We have to remind ourselves, hey, do we really want to go through another Rich Rod process and go for it all? Or should we just stay the course and let's see what happens? And my thought is we need to stay the course at least another season. Now, in Ohio State's case, Ohio State was in the same scenario back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Do we get rid of him? Do we not? They hired Tressel. It was a home run. Michigan did that. It wasn't. So, yes, and this game is very important, but my thoughts on Harbaugh are very, very clear. 3 10-win seasons, we got to keep them. We've only had 1 10-win season since Bo was laid to his grave. So, the numbers are pretty clear to me. You can't get rid of the guy just yet.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not advocating for Jim Harbaugh to get fired. I am saying, however, that he's got to answer questions. And I don't think that, look, like I said, 90% of the schools in college football, you'll want these numbers, 100%. But when you're at a school like Michigan, when you're at a school like Texas, when you're at a school like Alabama, like Ohio State, Georgia's going to be there soon. Notre Dame is one of those schools. You can't take away the name because that's a big reason why the person was hired. You can't, let me put it this way.
Sure.
If Nick Saban switched records with Jim Harbaugh, Nick Saban had done all the same things. Nick Saban had also lost to Auburn every year of his tenure here in Tuscaloosa and had yet to make a college football playoff or a national championship or even won a conference championship. I think he would be severely on the hot seat. That's how Alabama fans operate. The expectations are high here, and the expectations are high in Michigan, and that's why questions have to be asked, because with certain places come certain expectations. And as good as the overall record can look, if you're not meeting certain expectations, people are going to get a little uneasy. Kevin Sumlin, all right, so at Texas A&M, the expectations are obviously lower than at Michigan and at Alabama. But he had a great overall record, not great conference record, and they let him go because he wasn't meeting the expectations, A, that A&M fans have already, B, that he set for himself in his first year. So I'm not saying Jim Harbaugh should be in the hot seat, not saying he should be fired. However, he's got to answer questions. He's got to make some changes. He's got to do something to immediately, because the process, this is year 5 for Harbaugh? I mean, the process, it should be, we should be seeing results. We should be seeing playoff bursts. We should be seeing Big Ten championships. We should be seeing victories over Ohio State, and we're not. And my question is why, and what can he do differently to make that happen? Because he can't stay there forever just getting by on 10-win seasons that are not victories over Ohio State or against Notre Dame or in a postseason game like the Big Ten championship or the college football playoff. It can't happen.
Yes, and that was going to be my next point, was something psychologically has to change for this team for the preparation for Ohio State and Notre Dame and Michigan State, those big games. The preparation has to change because, like you've said, 4 years now, no victories over Ohio State. 2 against Michigan State, and they seem to be getting the monkey off the back for Michigan State, but not yet Ohio State. And hopefully Urban Meyer leaving will help. As for Florida, they have a monkey on their back as well, and that is Michigan. How does Dan Mullen prepare the Florida guys for this?
Dan Mullen is an interesting guy. He's a good coach. He was obviously great at Mississippi State, and he really did well in bowl games up in Starkville. They only lost twice, went 5-2. He's really good at getting players ready for these kinds of games. And I'm intrigued because this is not a great Florida team. The 9-3 record is a bit over what I think that their talent actually is. 8-4 to me would be more reflective of how good that team actually is. But they won the games in front of them, and they've got some talent. I mean, they've got a good defense. Felipe Franks has looked better the last 3 games. His completion percentage is up 9%. The last 3 games, and he's thrown 7 touchdowns, albeit against the South Carolina defense that's not great, Idaho and Florida State, who's bad. But he's not messing up, and he's looked better, and the development is clearly there. I mean, Florida's tough to evaluate for me. This is a good team. This is not a team that I think talent-wise should be in the New Year's Six. But they're going to be an interesting challenge because they're so physical, and they've got 2 really, really good running backs that are going to be tough to stop, especially after watching that Michigan rush defense against Ohio State.
Yeah, and that was unfortunate to see. But the last time Dan Mullen faced Michigan was, of course, the 7-5 year under Rich Rod that everybody was saying fire Rich Rod, including yours truly, and Dan Mullen pretty much solidified that case with Mississippi State in the Gator Bowl. So, how will this game go? Now, of course, you're on a pro-Michigan show, so answer carefully.
Well, I'm always honest, and I think that, like I said, this is just so important for Michigan. I mean, they've got to win this game.
Yes.
If they don't, the questions are going to be there. Florida doesn't have that same kind of pressure, right? I mean, this is year 1 of Dan Mullen. They overachieved, in my opinion. I think he is a very reasonable choice for SEC Coach of the Year. If he's won at a couple places, I don't know if the conference has announced it yet. I don't think so. But he would be a very reasonable choice. They don't have that kind of pressure. He doesn't have that kind of pressure. So I like Michigan. Very close, very ugly, 17-10. I will not be shocked though if Florida wins this game because they are a good team and they have overachieved. And Dan Mullen gets the most out of his players every single year. So I think it'll be close. I think Michigan's better, but this will be pretty fun if you like, ground and pound, hard nosed, low scoring football because that's what this is going to be.
Every time that I've looked at Michigan, Florida, I've thought to myself, okay, it's going to be a close game. Every time Michigan has beaten the brakes off Florida, to quote the defensive, I forget his name, but the defensive guy's tweet from last year. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But this is the game that I would go ahead and predict a Michigan blowout, but then Florida would win. So to use reverse psychology, I'm going to go a close Michigan win as well. I'm going to say a little bit farther than 7 points. I'll say like 24-14. I'll go 10, Michigan, so that I can use that reverse psychology and that Michigan will beat the brakes off Florida, if you see what I mean.
Well, here's the difference in those past Florida games against Michigan. 2015 against that Michigan team, quarterback was Treon. All right? I mean, Treon Harris is not going to blow the doors off anybody throwing the football. He's not that guy. That was a good Florida team with Will Greer, but Treon, he's not that guy. I watched that SEC championship. He's just not that guy, and he didn't have really a quarterback developer on that staff. You look at Felipe Franks this year; he's got better every single week. Yeah, he's still making some mistakes. He's also still a sophomore. I know it feels like he's been at Florida for 95 years, but he's still really young. And Dan Mullen is clearly working with him, clearly getting a little bit better, improving his game, improving his vision, which is important, and his reads. So that, to me, is why Florida has a chance, because they're not dead to rights quarterback-wise. They've got a quarterback who can make some plays and has a big arm, and as long as he doesn't make mistakes, which he hasn't the latter half of the season, they're going to be in the game.
Yeah, and the thing about Treon Harris is that Treon Harris looks like he should be hitting Callaway golf balls at a driving range rather than throwing to Callaway.
Yeah, He was not great. I have a great friend who is a big Florida fan, and she went to Troy years ago, and she grew up a Florida fan in Apalachicola, and
I was gonna say her name's not Laura Rutledge, is it? Because she went to Florida.
It's not. Her name's Deidre, and anytime we gather over the summer, we make our football picks, and I remember the year after over the summer after this game, she gets to our house and she looks at me and says, "What the heck are we doing with Treon? We have a quarterback named Treon. What? He can't do anything. We just want to be relevant, and we got Treon instead." And she's right. Treon was never that player. Felipe Franks can be, though. I mean, he's got the skills. He's got the talent if you watch the tape. It's just all about, I think, the 6 inches up top between the ears and how he develops that way mentally and emotionally, especially as a quarterback going forward. And if he can keep his head clear and doesn't panic, Florida could definitely win. I'm picking Michigan, but I think Florida has a chance to pull this one off.
And like I had said before, this a series that Michigan has dominated, but I think to myself, don't go with Michigan dominance because it's going to kill you. So that's why I'm going Michigan close. Also, quick note, I know another lady that went to University of Florida. She works the Detroit Lions social media, Tori Petrie at Sports Story. You should hit her up with a follow as well. Great personality. Florida's produced a lot of great talent.
Absolutely.
So, moving on to the playoff. Finally. I know. What's kind of like that SpongeBob episode Krusty Krab training video. Da 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 da. It's the playoff, finally. We will start with the Cotton Bowl. Notre Dame and Clemson. I know, just what the SEC has been excited for, right?
Oh, yes, we're all very thrilled.
So this game was played, of course, 3 years ago. In the pouring rain, Clemson had won it in Death Valley. So does Notre Dame have a revenge factor from that game years ago?
No, I don't think so. I think it was far enough. However, I think that it's a good blueprint that shows that Notre Dame actually can compete with Clemson, because that Notre Dame was built more like this year's Notre Dame team compared to the 2012 Notre Dame team that made the BCS National Championship. And what I mean by that is better quarterback play and more physical on the line of scrimmage. So it's a good blueprint that shows that, hey, Notre Dame, maybe they could compete. I mean, I don't think that Brian Kelly's going to use that game and put it up on the wall. However, this is an interesting Notre Dame team because, you know, they just kind of squeaked by. I mean, look at some of the games. Pittsburgh squeaked by. Probably should have lost to Vanderbilt. I was keeping track of that game while I was at LSU Auburn, and Vandy had a chance to win, and probably should have, to be quite honest, even though that was with Wimbush at quarterback. It's a Notre Dame team that just kind of got it done, but didn't do anything flashy. And if they want to win against Clemson, that's how they have to do it. They have to figure out a way to shut down Etienne. They have to figure out a way to make Trevor Lawrence nervous and see stars and make his reads complicated. And they have to figure out a way to score and score, you know, enough to where, or I guess, let me rephrase, score with drives that are long enough to take control of the game, to keep Trevor Lawrence off the field, to tire down that Clemson defense. Notre Dame is not a program that I would point to if I said one that's built to control the clock, but they can. And Dexter Williams has been a good running back since he came back. Ian Book is top 10 in quarterback efficiency. They've just got to figure out a way to control this game from the opening snap, and that, to me, is the only shot they have at winning. Because if Clemson comes out firing and they get up 14-0 real quick in the first quarter, it's over. It's over. Notre Dame, in my mind, doesn't have the talent to come back from that.
Yeah, and I think a good blueprint for Notre Dame to follow would be the Syracuse game. I mean, Syracuse played controlled defense. They just didn't quite have enough, especially in Death Valley.
Yeah, it's I would agree with that. I would figure out a way to stop Etienne a little bit better than Syracuse did.
Yes.
But yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the game plan worked, and they had a good idea of how to make Trevor Lawrence look like a freshman. I'll say that before he went out with the injury. So yeah, I think that if they were going to look at a game this year, Syracuse would definitely be the one to point to. Maybe also A&M, although that was obviously with Kelly Bryant instead of Trevor Lawrence.
Right. So we had kind of talked about my next point, which was Trevor Lawrence, does he have nerves going into this playoff? But we kind of did touch about that just a little bit. I'm not sure if you want to add anything to that, but
here's the thing. I was talking with Todd Blackledge from ESPN. He was over here the other night, and I asked him about Trevor Lawrence. I said, what do you think? Because he's calling this game in Dallas, and he said, "This kid's the real deal. This kid, he's got all the talent. He's got the vision. He's got every intangible you could want as a quarterback." And Todd thinks that he's going to be one of the top 2 quarterbacks every year of his career, one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks every year of his career going forward at Clemson. He's got the skills. And he also hasn't looked like a freshman that much except against Texas A&M. He wasn't playing great against Syracuse, but he wasn't playing poorly. Against A&M, he made a couple long throws that were jump balls that his receivers were talented enough to go get, but otherwise, he looked like a freshman against A&M, and that was it. Every other game this year, he's looked pretty poised. So Notre Dame's got to figure out a way to disguise blitzes, disguise coverage, figure something out to make him uneasy. I don't know what that'll be. I'm not sold on the Notre Dame defense as quote unquote elite, but they've got to figure out some way to make him uneasy in the pocket, because if they don't, he's going to pick them apart. He's got all the skills.
Right. So who's going to go to the national championship between Notre Dame and Clemson in this Cotton Bowl?
I think that we've been gearing to the same national championship since about week 5 of this season, and we'll get to part 2 later. But I've got Clemson winning. I actually think Notre Dame's going to play pretty well. Brian Kelly's a good coach. Didn't deserve Coach of the Year. That was Bill Clark at UAB, and I will die on that hill. He deserves every award ever until the end of time. But Clemson is going to have their hands full. Notre Dame's going to make it tough, but I like Clemson. I've got it 34-28. That might be a bit too close. I would trust more 34-23. I think Notre Dame might get a late score to make it look a little bit more competitive, but they're going to be in it until about late third quarter when Clemson overwhelms them with that tough D-line.
I'm also going to take a shot at one of my regulars at work, and I'm not sure of his name, but he's a big Notre Dame fan. He told me, "Oh, we creamed Michigan." I'm like, we had yes, you guys beat us game-wise, but we had the ball with a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. Yes, Shea threw a pick, but we still had the ball with a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. That's not creaming us.
Well, I mean, think about it. You want to talk about the first quarter? Yeah, Notre Dame creamed Michigan.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I will agree with that.
For 2 games and 3 quarters, they looked average. And then Book came in, changed things up. But, Stanford's not great. Virginia Tech's not great. Pitt's not great, and they barely beat them. I mean, they get it done, but they don't do it flashily. And it's hard for me to look at Notre Dame and say that is a team that can win a national championship, or to put it in this context, that is a team that can stick with Clemson for 4 quarters. Clemson's just way too talented.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go more than 34-28. I'm going to say 35-20. Clemson.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds about right, honestly. I think it'll be that kind of game late, and then Notre Dame will maybe put together some sort of drive to make it interesting, because every year one of the semifinals has to have some kind of crazy ending, and I think it potentially could be this one. Who knows? But, yeah, Clemson will win.
And now the game that we've all been waiting for. And if you made it this far in the show, thank you for listening, because you are awesome, every single one of you listening. Oklahoma, Alabama in the Orange Bowl. I'm certain we both think this is going to be the old-fashioned shootout.
Yeah, it's I don't know about shootout, I think Alabama's going to put up a lot of points that Oklahoma will score, but statistically, I mean, you can't ignore the Oklahoma defense and how they can't stop anybody. And I'm going to give a shout out to Pat Forty. He listed this one statistic. Texas Tech put up 46 on Oklahoma, 9 more than their season average. Oklahoma State, 47, 9 more than season average. Kansas, 40, 16 more than their season average. West Virginia, 56, 14 more than their season average. Those numbers are all over Oklahoma's schedule. Alabama comes in averaging 47.9 points per game. So let's say about 12 points points above that. I think that it would be very easy to see Alabama scoring 60. And Alabama's defense is too talented to let Oklahoma and Kyler Murray, as good as they are, put up that much. Kyler's obviously very good. He deserved the Heisman Trophy. I'm glad he won it. They've got a great O-line. It's going to be tough for Alabama to get pressure with 3, but Oklahoma's defense is such a sieve, and it's hard to ignore that. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, and I was going to say Oklahoma's defense. Wait, they actually had a defense? I wasn't aware.
It's tough to see sometimes, but they are out there. They're not doing much, but they are out there.
They're just 11 stick figures standing out there? Is that what you're saying?
More or less. Certainly against West Virginia, other than the two touchdowns that they had, which were just terrible plays by West Virginia, but I mean, my goodness, I've never seen that many wide open receivers in my life on both sides. That was embarrassing for football.
Yeah, if I were an OU fan, I would just be throwing a fit every game, even though we're winning, because I'm a defensive guy. Of course, look at the team that I root for, Michigan. Well, how are we built? Defense. What I commonly ask people as a funny joke, what do Jim Harbaugh and I have in common? I say good D.
Well, the thing about a team like Oklahoma is when you have a defense as bad as theirs, the margin of error is gone. I mean, look at the Texas Tech game. Kyler Murray throws 2 picks in the first quarter. Tech had the edge. Now, Oklahoma was able to get some stops in the second half, and that led to them winning, but you're not going to do that against Alabama. So the margin of error, I assume, unless Oklahoma does some major overhaul defensively in these weeks preparing, is non-existent. And if they make any sort of mistakes on offense, that's going to be all she wrote. And maybe the most important stat that I found, that was the most interesting, at least, when I was researching this game a couple weeks ago, 3rd downs. Alabama, historically, in these big games, they've had difficulty converting 3rd downs. This season, that has not been the case. They're 2nd in college football on 3rd down conversions, and nobody's been able to stop them on plays like that, except maybe Mississippi State. They did a good job, had a good scheme against Alabama. Oklahoma defensively is 113th in 3rd down defense. That is not the recipe for success. That is not the recipe for getting Tua off the field. And I mean, sure, hopefully they're maybe equal. Oklahoma's better, but they both have potent offenses. But defensively, the edge isn't even close.
Yeah, if defense is going to be played in this game, it will most definitely be played by the Crimson Tide. Now, as for Tua, and I'll get into this sort of real quick. Motivation from the Heisman vote. I certainly think that Tua is motivated by not winning the Heisman, as Kyler Murray is motivated by winning it. What do you think?
Well, Tua is an interesting guy. He is not going to say that. I think it will be privately something that fires him up. I'm actually more excited to see how Saban uses to motivate Tua. If I'm Nick Saban, every day I'm going up to Tua and finding some graphic, some vote, some article that said Kyler deserved to win the Heisman, maybe some of my tweets, I don't know, although I doubt Saban's pulling those up, and I'm showing them to Tua and saying, look at this, there's no respect for you. I think this is such a great tool that Saban can use to fire up Tua that I actually feel bad for some of Oklahoma's corners, because it's going to get ugly. Tua is going to come out wheeling and dealing, and Tua's too proud to not play better, exponentially better than he did in the SEC championship game. He prides himself on his abilities. He prides himself on not throwing interceptions. He had 2 against Georgia. the motivation won't be a problem. If anything, all this is going to add more, and I'm really excited to see how Saban uses everything that's happened to Tua in the last month. The doubting, the injuries, the SEC championship performance, the Heisman, how he uses that to fire up his quarterback, because it's all right in front of him. The blueprint is there to get Tua to play his best game of the season.
Dare I say this, but I think I'm going to help motivate Tua a little bit. Believe it or not, I would have actually I would have voted for Kyler Murray for Heisman number 1. I would have voted Haskins number 2 over Tua. Here's the reason why. If you watch Alabama's games, where is Tua for the second half of most of them? On the bench. And it's because.
But why is he on the bench?
But yes, that's why he's there. That's why he's there, is what he's doing. So my thought was, if Kyler Murray had to do all of it, Tua had a defense to help. Now it kind of hurts Tua in that way because of the Heisman vote, because that's how the Heisman seems to be. But I'm sure Saban will use that as maybe not exactly that quote that I said, but use that frame as motivation for him. So nothing against Tua. Tua did what he had to do, but because because the Heisman committee and the voters were only given that frame of what Tua had to do, that kind of hurt him in the Heisman vote. But the Heisman vote is just the trophy, and that's that. The championship is what the Heisman winners play for, and of course Tua. So, with that being said, how will this Orange Bowl go?
Like I said earlier, we've been gearing to this championship matchup since week 5, since Clemson beat Syracuse, since it became obvious that they could win even without Trevor Lawrence and certainly without Kelly Bryant. And Alabama has been a machine since week 1. And also, how crazy is it that they have the best story in college football this year other than UAB with Jalen Hurts and what he did in the SEC championship game. Oklahoma can't stop Alabama. Alabama will score 50-plus easily. I've got them winning 52-35. Kyler will make it interesting, but Alabama's defense is too fast. Saban is too good when he has this much time to get teams ready, especially when he has a roster that is better than the one he's facing. Because I say that, and a lot of people point out the semifinal against Ohio State. That Alabama team had no business being a number 1 seed. That was an Alabama team that found ways to win, but was not as elite as the one we're seeing this year. This is an Alabama roster that is better almost everywhere than Oklahoma, and they'll prove it with a big win in the Orange Bowl, setting up a national championship rematch, of course, with Clemson.
I'll throw out a stat here and say that every year that every year since at least 2013, Alabama has lost at least 1 game. They have lost 0 games so far, but losing 1 game, of course, doesn't necessarily mean I think Oklahoma will beat Alabama. I think Alabama wins here, and it's because, like you had said, and like I had said, Oklahoma has defense. What is that again at Oklahoma? I didn't know that existed. Defense in this game will be played by Alabama. I think it will be a shootout, but of course, someone makes a stop, it's going to be Alabama. Give me the Crimson Tide 60-50. High scoring, and it will be at least midnight Mountain Time before this game is over. Not Central Time, Mountain Time.
I will be in Miami catching a flight the day after to El Paso, Texas.
You mean the day?
And I am not happy with the idea of us ending at 2 o'clock Eastern. I need my sleep before I fly out to Texas.
Believe me, I watching all these games too, I need some sleep as well, because if you saw my tweet, I had to be up at 4:45 this morning Eastern for work at 5:45. I have some early mornings at times. So, with that being said, that was a lot, wasn't it?
Well, it's you got to talk about it all, because what are you going to skip over? And we didn't even get to cover some of the more fun non-New Year's Six bowl matches, which I think I'll just give a shout out to one. I think the most fascinating one is Penn State, Kentucky. I really think that's going to be a fun game. A lot of people are going ahead and picking Penn State. I'm not so sure. Kentucky's trying to win 10 games for the first time in decades on decades, and Penn State, I'm not sold on them. I mean, I've seen them a couple times, and I wasn't that impressed. I think that'll be a fun game. I mean, there's a lot to like about bowl season. It's the best time of the year.
Yes. Football Festivus, like I had said earlier in the show, according to our buddies at 3 Point Stance Magazine. In that game, it's going to be close. I've watched a lot of Penn State. I like everybody else, was questioning James Franklin's call on 4th and 2 against Ohio State. As far as that, Michigan blew the brakes off Penn State, thank God. Why not? Snow, yeah. Why not? Snow, yeah. Give me Kentucky.
I mean, hey, snow, yeah, am I right? I mean, it's just an interesting game, and I think Mark Stoops would be my pick for SEC Coach of the Year. And yeah, they lost to Tennessee and whatever, but I don't know. I have a feeling. It reminds me a lot of Mississippi State, Louisville last year, where everyone went in thinking Mississippi State had no shot. They didn't have Dan Mullen. They didn't have Nick Fitzgerald. They were playing Lamar Jackson, and they won the game, and they won it pretty convincingly late. I mean, they dominated it from a defensive standpoint. Kentucky's got Josh Allen. I think that it'll be an interesting game. I think Kentucky will win too. I think it'll be close, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about Louisville hasn't been relevant since. In fact, how would you like to be the coach of Louisville, which was Bobby Petrino, sitting there on your own coach's show and finding out that you've been fired? Because that's what happened to Bobby Petrino.
In high school, I took a leadership class, and we had to write an essay about an example of bad leadership. And my example was Bobby Petrino from his time at Arkansas, and the whole thing about Auburn flying out to try and hire him while Tuberville was still the coach, and what he did in Atlanta. He's not anyone's best friend. Let's just say that. Slimy comes to mind when I think of Bobby Petrino.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a lot of controversy. So, with that being said, we covered a lot, and I guess I'll go ahead and ask, is there anything else you have to add to this wonderful Tom Green podcast?
Well, not much.
Sure.
You know, bowl season's right around the corner. New Year's Day and New Year's Eve and the 29th, they're all going to be fun. It's the best time of the year, and it was fun to talk about it, and I hope all my picks are right. They probably won't be, although I will brag a minute and say I am 8 for 8 or 7 for 7 or how many we've played bowl games so far. I'm very proud of that. It will probably end tonight because I have mentioned it. But it's a lot of fun to talk about bowl games, and we should hopefully get some entertaining matchups, and then definitely have a very entertaining national championship game, no matter who's in it, unless it's Notre Dame, because they will get blown out by either Alabama or Oklahoma.
It could be a rematch. It could be a reprise of 2012, if that's the case.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Right. So, thanks again, Gray, for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure. And hopefully, if you're down in SEC Nation, if this is your first time hearing the Tom Green Show, we'd love to have you subscribe. Follow at TomTV23, at Tom Green Pod. Gray knows it, and I've been around a lot of people, and I imagine that someday that myself and Gray will cross paths at some point. So we'll see how things go as far as that. Thanks again, Gray, and this has been a wonderful edition of the Tom Green Podcast.